started off like any ordinary Saturday. I was running my errands, just trying to get through my to-do list so I could relax the rest of the weekend. The last stop was the grocery store, a small local place I liked because it wasn't as crowded as the big chains. I was halfway through the aisles when I noticed a man following me. He wasn't doing anything strange at first, just seemed to be picking up similar items as me. But then I realized he wasn't really shopping. He had no cart, no basket, just trailing behind a few paces back, stopping when I stopped, turning when I turned. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just going the same way. But then I heard him hum a tune. It was "Take Me Home, Country Roads." The same exact song I had been singing out loud in my car on the drive over. That shook me. I never had my windows down and I didn't notice any car nearby at the time. I sped up my shopping and went straight to checkout, keeping an eye on him. He didn't buy anything. He just walked out right after me and stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching. I got in my car and locked the doors, trying not to panic. But the next time I saw him, it wasn't at the store. It was somewhere a lot closer to home. That night, I triple-checked the locks, shut the blinds, and left every light in my apartment on. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the guy was just weird. Maybe the song was a coincidence. But I couldn't shake that feeling like I was being watched. I tried to sleep, but kept waking up at the slightest sound. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard a noise outside. Not loud, not obvious. Just movement, like someone brushing against the bushes below my bedroom window. I peeked through the blinds and saw nothing, no one. But the next morning, when I left for work, I noticed something strange. There was a small paper bag on my doorstep. No note, just a bag. Inside was a single item, a packet of the same brand of gum I always bought at the grocery store, Wintergreen. The rare kind that only that one store carried. My stomach dropped. That wasn't a coincidence. I hadn't bought any the day before. And no one knew I chewed that kind. I asked my neighbors if they saw anything, but no one had. One of them suggested it might have been a thank you from someone I helped or a local promo, but I knew better. That guy, he had followed me, and now he knew where I lived. By that evening, I was in full panic mode. I called the police, but without a direct threat, they said there wasn't much they could do. I asked if they could at least patrol the area. They said they'd make a note. Useless. I didn't go to work the next day. I stayed home with the windows locked, blinds down, and phone in hand. Every creak of the building made me jump. Around 11:00 p.m., I heard a soft knock at my door. Not a loud one, it was gentle, deliberate. I froze. I didn't make a sound. The knock came again, a little firmer, then silence. For what felt like forever, I just sat there, staring at the door. Then, slipping quietly through the mail slot, came a folded piece of paper. I crawled over and picked it up, heart racing. The handwriting was neat. It simply read, "You didn't sing back." That was it. Nothing else. I backed away from the door in a cold sweat, clutching the note. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept the lights on and stared at the door for hours. I felt like if I blinked, something would slip through. The next morning, I packed a bag and left town. I stayed with a cousin for 2 weeks, didn't tell anyone where I went. During that time, there were no messages, no calls, no signs that whoever had been watching me followed. But when I returned, everything in my apartment felt different. Nothing was out of place, but it felt wrong, like someone had been there. I changed the locks, installed cameras, and started keeping a baseball bat under my bed. I still don't know who he was or how he knew so much about me. Maybe it was someone from work or someone I passed by every day without noticing. The part that sticks with me, that chills me more than anything, is the lullaby. That voice, that song. I haven't heard it since, but sometimes, when I'm lying in bed at night, I find myself humming it without realizing. And I stop, immediately, because I'm terrified that if I keep going, someone will start singing it back. It was supposed to be a regular Tuesday. I was at the DMV, standing in line behind a woman in her late 50s. Nothing particularly noticeable about her gray hair and a bun. thick glasses, a worn beige coat. I wasn't paying much attention till she turned around, looked me dead in the eyes, and said, "You still sleep with the closet light on, don't you?" I blinked, caught off guard, thinking maybe she mistook me for someone else. But then she said my full name. Not just my first and last my full name, including the middle one only my family uses. I laughed nervously and asked if we'd met before, and she just smiled and turned away. That interaction would have been weird enough, but the following days unraveled into something far more disturbing and personal. I went home that evening, still trying to make sense of what happened. Maybe it was just a fluke, a weird coincidence. I Googled her description, checked local forums, even called my mom to ask if we had any distant relatives who looked like that. Nothing. But later that night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed a folded note on the counter that hadn't been there before. I live alone. My apartment door had been locked all day. The note was written in sharp, blocky handwriting. Don't ignore her again. I tore my place apart looking for signs of a break-in, but everything was locked, no forced entry. My security camera in the hallway? Disconnected. That rattled me. I called the building manager, who swore no one had been in or out and that the hallway footage was intact. But when I went to check it, I saw her, the woman from the DMV. At 3:17 p.m., she walked right up to my door, stared at the camera, and smiled. Then the feed cut to black. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak, every gust of wind outside felt like it carried her presence. Around 2:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. No caller ID. Against bättre ljudment, I answered. There was breathing on the other end, steady, slow, and then softly that same woman's voice. You shouldn't have looked into it. I froze. She continued, I've always known where to find you, even before you were born. Then the line cut. I was done. I packed a bag and drove to my brother's place across town, too shaken to explain. I crashed on his couch, thinking I'd be safe, surrounded. But at 4:11 a.m., there was a knock at his door. We both jolted awake. He peeked through the peephole and went pale. Dude, there's an old lady just standing there. He opened the door a crack before I could stop him, but no one was there. Nothing. Just stillness. The hallway empty. We reviewed the camera feed from his smart doorbell. The image was crystal clear, the woman from before, standing motionless in front of the door, eyes wide open, mouth barely smiling. She wasn't holding anything, just staring directly into the lens. And then she turned slowly, looked off into the distance, and vanished. No footsteps, no fade. She just disappeared. I stayed awake until morning, barely blinking, watching that clip over and over. My brother tried to rationalize it. Maybe it's some neighbor messing with us? But there was no mistaking her. The same eyes, the same voice, the same calm menace that followed me across town without ever seeming to move. I changed my number the next day, moved out of my place, told work I needed time off. For weeks, I avoided anything that felt even remotely connected to that night. But she didn't come back. No more calls. No more sightings. Until I got a letter. No return address. Inside, a single Polaroid of me sleeping, clearly taken through a window. On the back, one sentence written in precise, shaky handwriting. You were always going to find me eventually. I burned it. The photo, the envelope, everything. I installed cameras, floodlights, even motion alarms. But deep down, I don't think she needs to break in to find me. I think she's already here, somewhere, waiting. I haven't slept well since. It was supposed to be a solo getaway. Just a few days off the grid, no work emails, no calls, just the dull hum of a cheap motel TV and the salty air of a coastal town I hadn't visited in over a decade. The kind of place where time feels slower, where the vending machines still take quarters and the wallpaper peels in every room. I had picked the motel on a whim. It wasn't listed on any booking site. I found it through an old travel blog that hadn't been updated since 2013. Quiet, cheap, clean, the post said. That's all I needed. The front desk was empty when I arrived. The bell on the counter didn't work. So I stood awkwardly until a tall man in his 50s shuffled in from the back office. His name tag read Al. He smiled in a way that felt practiced, handed me a room key, an actual key, not a card, and slid a paper registration form across the counter. "Been a long time since you came here," he said. I paused. "Sorry?" He chuckled. "You've stayed with us before, right?" "No," I replied, confused. "First time in this town, actually." Al just nodded, still smiling. "Right. First time." I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just confusing me with someone else. I mean, I probably looked like every other tired guy who walks through those doors. I took my key, headed to room 9, and told myself I was overthinking it. But that night, things started to feel off. The room smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. I threw my bag on the bed and tried to settle in. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. Even though the window faced the parking lot, I didn't hear a single car come or go. No footsteps outside. No creaking floors from neighboring rooms. Just silence and the low buzz of the mini fridge. I turned on the TV, hoping to drown it out. Static. I flipped through the channels. All of them were either snow or reruns from decades ago. No local news, no ads, no weather. It felt like I'd stepped back in time. Later that night, I walked down to the vending machine near the lobby. The hallway was dark. Only one overhead light still working. As I passed the front desk, I noticed something strange. Al was gone, but the logbook was still open. Curiosity got the better of me. I leaned in. The last 5 entries were all written in the same shaky handwriting, and each had the same name. Daniel Wright, my name. The dates were spaced years apart, going all the way back to 1999. My heart dropped. Was it a mistake? Was there someone else with the same name? I never booked this place before. I checked the guest book again. The signature was exactly like mine. Same looping W. Same slanted A in Daniel. I backed away, suddenly cold. Maybe it was some twisted prank. I rushed back to my room, trying to convince myself there was a logical explanation. But things only got worse. Around midnight, I was half asleep when I heard a knock on the door. 3 soft taps, then silence. I didn't move. Another knock, louder this time. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. A man stood outside, tall, wearing a dark coat. His face was turned slightly away, but I could see enough to tell I had never seen him before. And yet, he looked familiar. Like someone from a dream you forgot but still feel in your gut. Then he said my full name. Not loudly, not like he was trying to get my attention. He whispered it, like he was confirming it to himself. He repeated it again. Daniel Wright. I stepped back. The peephole went dark. When I looked again, he was gone. I barely slept. Every creak of the motel walls made me jolt. Around 2:45 a.m., the TV turned on by itself back to static, louder than before. I scrambled for the remote, but it was already sitting on the nightstand, untouched. I yanked the power cord out of the wall. Silence. My breathing was loud enough to fill the room. Then the phone rang. Not my cell, the landline on the bedside table. The same landline I hadn't touched since checking in. I stared at it for a second before picking up. Nothing. Just dead air. And then a faint sound. Breathing. Slow, raspy, deliberate breathing. And then that same voice, a whisper I now recognized. Daniel Wright, you need to check out.
I hung up immediately, threw everything into my bag, shoved my feet into shoes, and opened the door, but the hallway wasn't the same. It was longer.
Much longer. Stretching endlessly in both directions, the lights flickering with each step I took. Doors that hadn't been there earlier now lined the corridor, each one numbered with my birth date repeated over and over. 19分之7, 19分之7, 19分之7. One door at the far end was slightly ajar. From inside, I heard the static again. It was the only sound. I approached slowly, shaking, heart hammering. Inside, the room was an exact replica of mine. Same bag on the bed, same TV, same open window. But I wasn't alone. There was someone sitting in the corner, back turned, Same coat as the man outside my door. He slowly turned his head toward me, and it was me. Not a look-alike. Me. Pale, dark bags under the eyes, a twisted version of myself. He smiled like he'd been waiting. "You made it," he said. "You always do." And then everything went dark. I woke up in my car, parked sideways in the motel's gravel lot. Headlights still on, engine cold. My watch read 6:13 a.m. I stumbled out and looked back at the building. The neon vacancy sign flickered lazily in the early dawn light, casting a sickly red hue across the windows. Everything looked normal. The hallway was short again. The receptionist was gone. The static from the TV? Silent now. I walked inside to check out, not because I owed anything, but because I needed to know if I had actually stayed there. At the front desk, a different man stood behind the counter. He looked young, fresh, and wore a crisp motel shirt with the name Andy on his tag. "Good morning, checking in?" he asked. "No, I'm checking out," I said, voice cracking. "Room 12. He blinked, tapped a few keys, looked confused. "Sir, we don't have a room 12. The rooms only go up to 10. I stared at him, then back toward the hallway. "And no one checked in last night," he added. "The place was empty. You're the first guest in 2 days. Water heater broke." I turned around and left without another word. I never told anyone about it. I still have the worksheet from that night, the same one the man in the coat had shown me in my dream. The one I'd never filled out, but somehow had my name written in perfect cursive at the top. Every July since, I've gotten a voicemail, no number. No name, just that same static. And a whisper, "You made it. You always do."